Hi, g'day. So thanks for listening in today. Really excited to be here talking about some of the work that we've been doing around building a best practice resource for the mango industry. It's a project that's been running for a little while and really just wanted to touch on the project generally and sort of where we're up to and what we're trying to achieve through this work. So the title of the project is Building Best Management Practice for the Australian Mango Industry. It's a Hort Innovation supported project with a number of partners involved. It's almost a 4-year project, and the total value is around $1.9 million, with majority of that coming from Hort Innovation, and the rest coming from in-kind contributions from the various partners. And these are the range of partners. So we've got Hort Innovation, of course, as filling their role. The Australian Mango Industry Association, government and departments, and University of Central Queensland. So it's really to address the national best practice. So developing resources for each of the regions, and that can be quite challenging because there are so many different regions where mangoes are grown, and they each have individual needs around differences in crop management and supply chain requirements. So the project's really across those 4 mango seasons, even though it's a little bit shorter than 4 years. So the aim of the first season was really to establish a best practice resource management team or evaluation panel, and that was a group of industry participants across the whole RD&E, supply chain, retail, etc., who provided some advice around what sort of topics and subtopics should be compiled as part of this resource. And I'll show you some examples of what that will look like shortly. And then another aspect of that first year was to conduct a baseline practice survey, and that was really trying to gather information around how the industry felt their understanding was in a couple of key areas, and also importantly how people want to receive information. So is it newsletters? Is it field days? How do people prefer to learn and receive this type of information? So we've collected some valuable information around that, which we'll discuss later on. The second year was really implementing those topics, and so the various teams in Queensland, NT, and WA have been working on that content for those topics, and we've been working on canopy management and nutrition, and so they are completed at the moment, and they're being rolled into an online resource. And then the other aspect was pre-season roadshows, which occurred last year, where we discussed this topic briefly, really just introducing it. And unfortunately, this year, because of COVID-19, field days and workshops really weren't achievable, but we've had an additional output from this project around the COVID-19 management plan for the industry, which is a really good resource if you're not aware of it. And then basically in the third and fourth years, it's just a replication of that. So developing content which will be put up into an online resource for use, and coupling that with pre-season roadshows run by AMIA, and then the various partners providing content and support around those events, and then in-season events, and they can take the form of field days, workshops, videos, a whole range of different things. So these are the topics and subtopics that the evaluation panel decided on after quite a lot of consultation and thought. So the sort of higher level topics are around orchard management, harvesting practice, and temperature management through the supply chain, and the subtopics within each of those. So these are some examples of online resources that other industries have developed. Typically, these are quite detailed, the one for avocados and cotton, where you've got, quite a lot of technical detail in there around a whole range of subjects. Other industries like strawberries and melons typically will have just maybe a 40, 50-page report, and that contains all their content. But the purpose of this project is really to develop quite a comprehensive online best management practice resource, not these shorter sort of documents which other industries have put out. So I just wanted to provide, unfortunately, we haven't really got to the stage where we can show you content around the mango one, but what I did want to do is share with you, it should be coming on the screen now, share with you the example for avocados, just so you can get a sense of what we're trying to achieve in this project. So this is the avocado best practice resource, and you can see, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse on the screen that you're seeing, but across the top there in the green shaded area, growing, packhouse, transport, wholesale. So there's a range of different sort of higher level headings. And then if you drill down within packhouse, for example, it'll take you through to content, which will provide more detail on a whole range of aspects to do with considerations around packing. See here on the right hand side, food safety, food grading, etc. So this is kind of what we're trying to build for mangoes, and it's taking a lot of this resource that sits within government departments and trying to move that onto a user-friendly space. So you can see here there's a little grading poster that that provides information around different defects and so on. So this is a type of thing that we're really trying to build as part of this project, and that creates a lot of challenges, but it also creates a lot of opportunities for bringing all that information into one location. So that's kind of the look and feel of what we're trying to build as far as an online resource. And it is really taking some of those learnings from the avocado one, for example. Some of the project team were involved in some of the content for building that. So it's really using the lessons learned from that to make sure that the mango best practice resource is highly relevant. So project activities are pretty, they're sort of dependent on the region, but basically field days are going to be a key component of that. Workshops. Here's an example screenshot taken from the WA government site around an irrigation calculator. So some outputs or activities similar to this. YouTube video and content and podcasts. So we're really trying to develop a range of different products that gets information across in a way in which different people want to interact with it. So not everyone, for example, will listen to podcasts, and we acknowledge that. But it is a product that some people may prefer to do as they're sitting on tractors, or however they prefer to search out and find content. So basically a range of different project activities. Each location's kind of doing their own thing as far as what they think will work in that region, and the survey that was conducted in the first year gives us a lot of insights into how people prefer to receive content. So this is just a little bit. I won't touch on all the aspects of the survey, but I just did want to cover some of the components, just so that you can see what the project's trying to achieve, and importantly how we're trying to align the development of content with those preferences of growers. So locations here, so pretty good cross section of the industry. We use SurveyMonkey to complete the survey. The IDOs, so Sarah and Maureen, were quite instrumental in doing that initial survey, and in total we collected 36 respondents. A range of different varieties collected, gives you an indication of the spread of those. information collected around age, and also a number of trays, so as a proxy for enterprise size. Learning preferences. This is sort of this was quite important to understand aspects of this. So we can see from a range of different potential sources, the preferred method for seeking out information is really talking to other farmers, which is understandable. Of course, Google searching, which everyone does. It's such a great tool. And also identifying there to the far left the Australian Mangoes publication. So, understanding that is a pretty important source of information for the people that were surveyed, is very useful information, because that automatically indicates what avenues are good for communication. And so, for example, social media, the second from the left there, it's probably an indication that a really strong social media campaign around this project is probably not going to be very effective. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't do that, and that we might not do a small amount of that, but it sort of certainly indicates it shouldn't be a focus area for this project. So learning preferences here again, just sort of ranked in order of preference. So attending field days was by far the most preferred method. Talking with family, friends, neighbours, and getting involved in on-farm research. So this sort of this top 5 sort of activities again give us an indication for how the industry, how farmers, how users want to interact and receive information that comes from this project, and that's really important for how we build content and how it's released and so forth. Production practices. So here we looked at what we're trying to do at the start of the project is really say, well, where is everybody's understanding at with regards to canopy management, nutrition, irrigation, etc. And importantly, what that allows us to do is at the end of the project, reevaluate that and see whether there's been a tangible improvement or not. And so really the results of this survey, to me anyway, make it pretty clear that across all of these areas, most people feel as though they've got enough information, and there aren't any clear areas where there's a significant shortfall in content or an understanding of a particular topic, and so that's really useful. So what I'd like to do now is probably just to drill down a little bit more into canopy management and nutrition, so that you can get an understanding for some of the questions that we asked and the types of insights that provides to us in our development of this resource. So aspects around pruning and canopy management. So 83% of respondents mechanically prune after harvest and then hand prune at some time, either at the same time or after the first flush. So that's useful information. About 16% only hand prune, and more than half prune more than once a year, and sometimes up to 4 times a year. So, understanding why that's happening and those types of things is quite important. And also, it brought up some regional differences. So, for example, in the Northern Territory in WA, perhaps, where having a much larger canopy to provide some shading to reduce sunburn, the practices and frequency around pruning were different to what were the responses coming through from other regions. So that's useful to know. So around production practices here, so regarding soil testing, so how often people soil test, do they soil test? So pretty much everyone surveyed is aware of different soil types on their properties, and that's not unusual. You of course would expect that. But what was interesting was that only 56% of those manage their trees differently based on the soil type that they have, and so that perhaps indicates an area where improvements to irrigation, for example, fertigation, could be made. Over 50% of soil tests are taken on all blocks at least once a year, and so the way in which that's tracked over time is also useful. So leaf tissue analysis is, a pretty common practice, and the main sort of reasons for not doing that really revolve around frequency. So some, only every second year, and then the preference there around just visually looking at tree health as opposed to taking leaf tissue samples. So all of this really, I've only touched on two of those factors, but all of this really builds a picture around where is the current understanding of knowledge across all of these different growing regions, and where is there potential for improvement around information and content for some of these aspects. So just coming back to the content now. So these were the high level sort of topics and subtopics. And so where we're up to currently in the project is that canopy management and nutrition have been completed, and the content for that involves, like you saw in the example for avocados, it involves some online content on the web page, and then some other products like posters, YouTube videos, etc. And so all of that's being built currently by AMIA as part of this project, and will be housed as a tab or a subcomponent of their existing website. So that's where we're up to at the moment as far as content development. Some of the outputs that have occurred. So I mentioned that earlier this year we were unable to do field days or sort of gathering sort of type events, and there was a clear need for some advice around COVID-19, and so that was an output which has come from this project, and majority of that was led by AMIA with input from the partners. So really comprehensive resource. If you haven't, if you're not aware of it, please seek it out. Just on AMIA's website, you'll find it very quickly. It's a very thorough resource, and I recommend, if you haven't seen it, to go and find it. Some other outputs. So manipulating mango flowering for improved production. So we put out a YouTube video. I think it's about 7 to 10 minutes long. It's really, this one was put out from an NT perspective. So I mentioned before that we're really trying to put out regionally specific content. So we're not trying to take understanding of flowering, how mango trees flower in the Northern Territory, and provide that to Queensland growers. It's of course different. But this video is really from an NT perspective, and it's currently online. You can currently look at it, and it will form part of the content within managing flowering and canopy on that online resource. So this season the activities will revolve around the pre-season roadshows, and that is a consistent theme across the 4 years of this project. So that's a really important event for this project in engaging and communicating progress around the different tasks and activities. And then there'll also be some regional events in the form of field days or workshops. And we saw from the survey that type of peer-to-peer type learning is really what's preferred, as opposed to some other mechanisms. And so just on the right-hand side there, recently released in the My Mango is the roadshow dates for Darwin and Catherine. And so the other regions dates and details for those will be released as time progresses, and assuming that travel restrictions and so on will allow for that. So the contacts, so if you do need to, you do want to get in contact, I'm based in the Northern Territory, but if you are looking at this webinar either live or in the recording, and you do want to get in touch with your local contact, then these are the best people to contact in relation to this project. Okay, thank you very much for your time. Hope that was useful, and welcome any questions.